Alright, in this video I'm going to be talking about panic disorder. Um, I chose this particular mental illness because of personal experience in my life. I had this issue when I was younger, probably started when I was 9 and kind of went all the way up until I was in high school. And I also have some family members that have this disorder. Um, so I have a pretty personal experience with this. This video is going to go over the symptoms and behaviors of someone who is suffering from panic disorder. And I'm gonna particularly mention how I would feel and like my family would feel and the people that I knew that suffered from this. I'm also gonna go over diagnosis and treatments, what the options are, medication, just how people with this disorder handle this and how effective those treatments are. And I'll also talk about in the conclusion how I feel like this course helped me and how it'll prepare me in the future. First thing is panic disorder is quite common. The American Psychological Association reports that 1 out of 75 people might experience some form of panic disorder in their lives, and that's worldwide. But in the United States, about 6 million adults suffer from panic disorder, or roughly 2.7% of the population. However, it is said that there are most likely a lot more undiagnosed people that suffer from the illness. Um, So this is where kind of gets personal for me. I've had many panic attacks in my life. So the symptoms are something that I've basically felt a lot. I know they can vary from person to person. I know I have a friend who had panic disorder and my grandmother suffers from it. So, the problem with panic disorder is that unlike other mental illnesses, the symptoms are very physical. You feel chest pains, shaking, rapid heartbeat, sweating, almost feeling like disconnected from reality. And a lot of people mention that they feel like they're gonna die. And I guess it really depends on the severity of the panic attack because usually when I would get it, sometimes it would feel that way. Um, some people don't really have some physical symptoms. Sometimes they feel more just super, super anxious feelings inside their mind. But a majority of people who get panic attacks do report that they have some sort of physical sensation. Um, Many people that I know, such as my grandmother and my friend, they all say the same thing when they have a panic attack, that it makes them feel very anxious and like they're having a lot of physical symptoms. Now, those are the symptoms, but behavior in people with panic disorder also varies just like the symptoms do. Uh, Most people with panic disorder, yes, most people with panic disorder, their behavior is similar, but it varies. Most people live in fear of their next panic attack, and it usually makes them really withdrawn and sometimes even depressed. I know that when I used to have panic attacks, it would make me feel like I had to be kind of locked in somewhere because I didn't want to like actually get another panic attack. So it's pretty devastating because not only does it affect you physically, but it starts really catching up to you mentally, and you kind of start living in fear almost. Um, I know my grandmother, when she would get panic attacks, she would get very shaky and jittery, and she would just tell me that she felt like she was gonna die. And then when it would stop, she'd be very tired for the rest of the day. And I know that's how I would feel too. Um, but I would just feel kind of drained a lot too. Like it just catches up to you after a while, and your behavior starts to change because of that. You'll start being really quiet, withdrawn. It just is negative overall. And I guess what scared me the most is I just never knew when my next panic attack was gonna be because it could be triggered by anything. I remember one time I was in a movie and I had a panic attack. I started feeling physical symptoms and I was worried that I was gonna die in the middle of a movie. So you just start having a lot of consequences, I guess, on your social life and your outside life. Now, diagnosing panic disorder is relatively easy compared to diagnosing other mental disorders. Unlike other mental disorders such as bipolar disorder, where you have to do a series of tests and try to rule out if it's another issue. Um, panic disorder, you kind of know when you're having a panic attack. So, panic disorder is characterized by reoccurring panic attacks that happen very often. So, if you're experiencing something like that, well, then most likely you do have panic disorder. So it's very easy to diagnose. And treatment can, consist of many different things. It primarily consists of taking anxiety killers or, um, medication that regulates, I guess, serotonin levels and stuff. However, most people who have panic disorder take some sort of benzodiazepine, which is a strong sedative that, will reduce your panic attack in a sense and kind of just mellow you out. However, there are a lot of side effects to that medication, so many people who have panic disorder are opposed to taking that medication. Um, I personally never took medication for it. I actually didn't even talk to psychiatrists or psychologists about it. I just handled it on myself. I suffered with it for about maybe 10 years, and eventually I just kind of started getting so tired of it that I didn't care anymore, and it just stopped happening to me. So, I also know people though who have the disorder who rely on their medication heavily, and they can't live without it. So I do know that, not everybody gets treated the same, and it does not what works for some persons might not work for other people in a sense. And what worked for me, which was basically kind of ignoring it, will probably not work for a majority of people. Um, so that being said, treatment really depends, case by case, and everything's effective differently, for different patients. Um, but yeah, treatment consists of medication and then talking to, psychologists or psychiatrists, uh, verbal therapy, just kind of talking about how you feel every week and whatnot. Now, in conclusion, I have a very positive view on the field of psychology. I'm very happy to see people with mental disorders getting the proper treatment that they need, as opposed to, back then where people with mental disorders were seen as like freaks or, possessed or whatnot. So it's very, comforting to see that the field of psychology is being taken a lot more seriously now compared to how it used to be. Now, I do hope that everything I learned in this course can help me in the future. Maybe, if my disorder returns, I'll be able to handle it more effectively than how I used to because I have a greater understanding of it. So, I hope that the information and knowledge that I've learned through the course stays in my mind so that way I can kind of call upon all the stuff that I learned whenever I'm having another panic attack and kind of realize that, hey, it's like a disorder, you're not actually dying, you know. So that's kind of all. That's all my presentation on panic disorder. And thank you for taking the time to listen.